Welcome to Talking Heads on USA Global TV, starring the one and only wonderful Dr. JACALYN. It's a prestigious place where world-class influencers and experts meet, and where you'll find the most trusted advisors and coaches for all things in life and business. Visit usaglobaltv.com to sign up for our newsletter, get the value you need, and be first in line to learn about events and giveaways and other valuable content. Connect with us. Email Dr. JACALYN at usaglobaltv.com to talk about how you can become part of USA Global TV. That's USA Global TV, where the doctor is always in.
Hello, everyone, and welcome. We are so happy to have you here at USA Global TV and Radio. I'm Dr. JACALYN KERBECK, and our show today is What's Trending. And the person who came up with this brilliant idea for this show is here today. She is my co-host, and we also have a fabulous guest backstage. So before we bring out our guests, let's bring out my co-host and friend. She is a dynamo. She has taken a business from nothing and made it into 7 figures. And she is so full of energy and passion. I love working with her. She keeps me on my toes, and she is just truly an inspiration, because whatever it is that is the task that is on the table or the plate, she's taking it to another level and another level and another level. And I am growing so much as a result of knowing her and working with her. Welcome, KATHY Fulton.
Good morning. Thank you so much. That was quite the introduction. Wow, what do I say?
It's so true. I mean, every time I hear from you, you come up with another great idea, and I'm thinking, I've got to find more time. Because I love your whole thought process and your creative spirit. It's amazing.
Well, thank you. I mean, I really appreciate it. But this show has been such a stepping stool for all of my ideas. That's, I mean, I qualify everything, or a lot of times I will preface my ideas when I'm voice texting you, because for me, it takes too long to text. And you know that I say frequently, okay, I've overthought this one more time. But I mean, you can either see that as a plus or minus on any given situation. But yeah, it's just so much fun. I love Thursdays. I love doing the show. It's just one of the greatest doors that's ever opened for me.
Oh, it's amazing. And for folks who aren't aware, you are also one of our expert presenters on our Talking Heads platform. You'll be presenting after this on a really cool subject that I've actually never given a lot of thought to before, but we'll save that. And you're also, congratulations, one of our elevated listeners on our listening team. That just happened recently.
Yay! Yay!
And you're a panelist on our show, A Woman's Prerogative. So in a short period of time, you've literally taken USA Global TV and Radio by the horns and just jumped right in. I love that.
Yeah, I pretty much have jumped in with all 4 feet. But it's because I love it, and it's so much fun, and all the connections that I've made as a result of it. It really just doesn't stop. Just when I think that this is a great door, and how could it get any better? The next door opens and it's better. But just from meeting all the people that are going to be on the show, it's just, I don't know. It's so awesome the way that you have arranged this as to where we all kind of just, it does nothing but help one another. So,
well, thank you. I appreciate that. And I'm going to spotlight you in a minute to tell people what you're doing when you're not here. But part of what I always say is, people will say, oh, what's the big deal? I can do a Facebook Live. No, it's not the same thing as doing a Facebook Live. Not. This is about a family. It's about a team of people who are all about hope, inspiration, education, and entertainment, and really lifting each other up and bringing a platform forward where people come from all over the world, from all different walks of life, and they share their story. So KATHY, I'm going to spotlight you to share your story about what you're doing when you're not here at USA Global TV and Radio.
Well, thank you for the spotlight. So I have had my own interior design firm for 22 years. And it's hard to believe. And what I do is I help people create beautiful spaces that they ultimately love to live in. But I was thinking about this, and I hear this so many times, and I just wanted to really dispel this myth. I have had people frequently talk to me and say, okay, Kathy, look, we really want to use a designer. We would love to use you, but we just can't afford it. And so we think that we're going to do it ourselves. And I'm like, go for it. I hear you. You want to save money. I totally get everything that's going through your head. And so then fast forward a few months later, I'll get a phone call from that exact same person that I was having a conversation with. And it starts out with, hey, look, remember when we were talking about that space that we were going to design? And I'm like, yeah. And they'll be like, okay, so it's a train wreck. And it's usually they've spent anywhere from 4 to 5 figures. And they're like, we hate it. And every time I hear someone say that, I always think to myself, okay, look, I don't fix my own car. I don't cut my own hair. I go to a professional. Now, today it may look like I cut my own hair, but when you don't do these things every day, use a professional. Because so when I go and see them and try to fix the train wreck, they ultimately end up spending more money. And if you just would have had the conversation, just entertain the thought of, okay, look, we want a designer in place and we want this to look like a designer, that we worked with a designer. How can we work out the finances on this? And I guarantee you, anyone with any type of design experience will be more than happy to get you to where you want to be, and oftentimes completely in budget. So that is my message for today.
That is a great message. Thank you so much for sharing that. I love it. By the way, I just want to add, when it comes to cutting your own hair, if you don't know what you're doing, I can tell you that I did it and it was a big mistake. My hair was like this long last year and I just started cutting, and then it was almost like it was just shaved. It was like one step above. So
to my point,
leave the scissors where they, and the rolling pin, by the way. So Kathy, we have an amazing guest today, as you know, because you invited Matthew Turton here, and he is the director of Breakthroughs in Learning. And for some of us, learning comes easy. It's not something that we have to give a lot of thought to, but for many people, that is not the case, and people struggle with learning disabilities. Matthew is a best-selling author, and he's also an educational therapist with over 20,000 hours in helping other people, which is truly tremendous. Before we bring him out, we're going to take a look at a clip, and then we'll talk to Matthew and hear about his backstory. He's also an adventurer. I know he's getting ready to take an amazing trip, which is exciting as well. So here's Matthew's story. Let's take a look.
January 25th, 1999. That was the day I had my breakthrough. And I celebrate it every year, but the journey was long and hard, and totally worth it. As a kid, learning was difficult, and I didn't know why. I didn't understand why I couldn't sit still like other kids. I thought that something was wrong with my pencil because the words just seemed to pour out of everybody else's. It didn't take long to realize the pencil wasn't the problem. It was me. My parents did their best to hide it and shelter me, but I knew, deep down I knew, that I was a failure. Try to imagine how it would feel to be 9 years old, sitting at your desk, and no matter how hard you try, you can't write and you can't focus. According to a local mental health hospital, I was the worst case of ADHD they'd ever seen. I also had expressive language disorder, which made getting my thoughts out onto paper nearly impossible. And I had dysgraphia, which meant writing was not only mentally painful, but physically painful as well. Knowing a traditional classroom was not an option, my mom decided to homeschool us. Despite her background as a teacher and a psychiatric nurse, homeschooling my brother and I was not an easy task. Neither of us were able to concentrate. But she never gave up. Armed with her faith and a fierce determination, she launched into 7 years of research, looking for the answers that would ensure we would have a future. Now, this was before the age of Google, so Mom traveled North America consulting and training with doctors, groundbreaking specialists, and experts. My parents spent tens of thousands of dollars trying to help us. Dad took a second job, and Mom worked part-time on top of everything else, so they could fund her research. We did every program you can imagine, and some you probably can't. I gave up hundreds of times, but Mom never gave up on me. Even though I couldn't write, I was a ferocious reader. Every week I'd get 10 new books from the library, and I picked a new book up from the shelf one day, and after reading several chapters, I went to find Mom and I said, "Mom, I have ADHD." My mom answered, "I know that, but how do you know that?" This was a pivotal moment for me because I realized I wasn't alone. My inability to control myself had a name. Knowing that there were other people with the same problems who were successful gave me hope and determination to find answers. From that day on, Mom and I became an unbreakable team. Academics became secondary to developing the skills required to be a successful learner. Other parents would have thought I was lazy, but Mom knew different. While I was gifted in other areas, it was still devastating that after years of therapy and looking for answers, at the age of 15, it would still take me more than an hour to write 3 sentences with enormous effort. That was until January 25th, 1999. There are moments in life that seem frozen in time. Your first bike, your first kiss, your wedding, holding your first child. January 25th, 1999 was a momentous day in my life. That day, I wrote a full page in 15 minutes. That day, I had my breakthrough. Years later, I'm now an internationally best-selling author and the director of Breakthroughs in Learning, where for over 25 years we've been helping children, youth, and adults get their breakthrough too. I can remember sitting across the table from my mom at only 11 years old, and she asked me if I had any idea what I wanted to do when I grew up. I looked at her and I said, "Mom, I want to do what you do, because someone needs to tell the kids they're not stupid." Today I'm doing exactly what I had envisioned as an 11-year-old boy. If you or your child are struggling to learn, know that change and success are possible. I encourage you to take action. Don't wait. I'd love the opportunity to support you or your child on the journey to your breakthrough.
Welcome, Matthew.
Oh, Matthew. Oh,
Thank
my
you.
God.
Oh my gosh, that was the second time I've watched it, and still, when you said the word failure, I just got overwhelmed.
It kills me. It kills me every time I watch it. It kills me.
It gets me every time I watch it, and I lived it.
Yeah. I just, the first time that I saw you was when I was taking the course that you were teaching on Fridays. And yeah, I just instantly, I thought you and your co-host, if you will, Emily, I just thought you guys were amazing. And then we got to the portion of the course where the bio and getting into all that. And I don't know how I stumbled upon yours. Maybe it was one of the examples, but I watched it probably 10 times because it resonated so with me. Mm-hmm. I had a really hard time learning as a kid and never really understood why. And I mean, sometimes I don't know. It certainly wasn't to the degree that yours was, but I mean, just for example, trying to learn math. All I can say is thank God that there are calculators to this day. I mean, but what resonates with me is that pain of wanting to learn, mm-hmm. wanting to do the work, because as we all know that there are kids in class that they don't have the motivation. They don't want to do the project. They don't want to finish the assignment, but I always did. And until you have lived that, and I only lived just one scintilla of what you went through. I mean, I can do nothing but salute you. And I mean, and just say, oh my gosh, look at you now. I mean, how many people have you worked with over the years, Matthew?
Personally, myself, certainly well into the hundreds, and indirectly through our team here, and with I get to speak at teachers' conferences and parents' conferences, way into the thousands. But there's a team of 12 here at Breakthroughs, and we get to help so many kids and adults. It's everything I ever wanted as a kid. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Matthew, I know people in my life who have ADHD, but they didn't know it, right? So you didn't know it right away, and there wasn't actually classification. What was it like, if you can go into a little more depth, when you finally knew that there was something there, that it wasn't just, to your point, stupid, lazy, et cetera, all of these terms that people use. Was that a complete gift of joy, that knowing that there was something, a terminology, a classification that you could get help?
Yeah, I had that on 2 different occasions. Kind of that ADHD story in the library, and then later when I had a cognitive assessment. And it's a double-edged sword. For the ADHD one, it was really cool to be able to know, oh, hey, there's a thing, there's a name, and the other people have it. I'm not this freak that nobody else has ever experienced any of the things that I have. And then when I had the cognitive assessment, it was a double-edged sword, because I had a lot of areas that were in the gifted range, and then I had a couple of areas that were in the disabled range. And so on one hand, it was like, wow, that is awesome. And then on the other hand, it was, as much as I mean, everybody around me knew that obviously I had some problems, especially with writing. To see it on paper, it was hard. But the good news was, it wasn't a life sentence. It wasn't, hey, yep, some things are good, some things are bad. Good luck, have a good life. It was, hey, this is where we're at right now, and here's what we can do about it. And that's when the rubber hit the road, and we actually started to get down to work and improve those cognitive skills for the better.
Fantastic. Well, congratulations again for all of the wonderful light and love that you're putting out into the world, because it truly does make a difference. Something I just want to touch on, I think this is interesting, is backstage before we came out, we were talking about, should we introduce you with your bio? And you found your bio and realized that it was so old and out of date. And when you think about truly, like, even looking at that on paper and saying to yourself, wow, look how far I have come. What does that mean to you?
So a lot of businesses look at things from a financial perspective, right? We look at how many dollars we make, or what our net revenue was, or whatever. And for me, it all comes back to the number of lives changed. And that's really what it comes down to. The years that I've been here helping kids and adults has been tremendous. And it really just comes down to just an incredibly long list I was going through I don't remember how this happened, but I ended up going through the QuickBook archives last year, and just seeing all these old names just popping up, someone that I'd worked with 20 something years ago, having that name pop up and just wondering where they are. And some of the best days are days when a client from 5 years ago, 2 years ago, 10 years ago will write in an email and update me on what they're doing today. The child that can't read just graduated university, and the child that had no friends is running clubs in high school. And it's tremendous.
So much joy.
I mean, I think about, when you talk about your parents and the roles that they played. Okay, so your dad was trying to keep all the wheels turning so that your mother could fund the research, and then she did her part above and beyond the research. But I just, everything in the 21st century is so instantaneous, right? I mean, we have a question, we Google it. And when I listened to your video over and over again, and I thought about your mom's dedication to this cause, and just, I mean, the stamina and the fortitude to take all these trips and meet with all these doctors and experts. And then just because you're going to go to someone clearly doesn't mean that that's going to be the answer. So I can only imagine her planning for this trip, thinking this is going to be the answer. This is going to be the one. This is the one that's going to lead us down the right path. And then to be deflated again. I mean, did you, how did she do this? And I mean, is it just, I love my kids and I want to try to find the answer, or what was it? Because I have complete admiration for her. Just
too.
Total. Yeah, I'm sure.
I gotta tell you, there was a lot of tears. Let's just kind of start there as a baseline. There was definitely a lot of tears and frustration. And she was a voracious reader. She had the background as a teacher and a nurse. So she was of a day and age. She used to joke she was a day and age, where as a woman, if you wanted to go to post-secondary education, you really only had two options. You could be a nurse or a teacher. And she kind of said, screw you, I'm doing both. And she did. She went off and became a certified teacher. And then she went into psychiatric nursing and actually helped to start the first outpatient clinic day program for mental health in Canada. And she just went into this challenge like any other challenge she faced in life, just relentless. And she dragged us to like all over the place. She went to monthly meetings in New York. We're in Waterloo, Ontario, Canada, and that is minimally a 4-hour drive. And she would be going there every month to try and find more information. And she dragged us to everybody that would talk to us, and she's not alone. I talked to so many parents that are like this. In my case, it was my mom that was relentless, and the people that sit across the desk from me here, they're, it's the moms and dads who are looking for help for their kids. And what I always find interesting, it happened twice this week already. While we're having a conversation with their kid, they start looking at each other and like, maybe I could use some of this help too. And so we end up working with a lot of parents who realize, as we're going through their kids stuff, they're like, my short-term memory has some problems too. Or, maybe my listening comprehension causes some challenges at work. And we end up working with their parents too, which is a really cool experience as well.
Wow. So then it becomes a family affair.
Yeah.
I absolutely love that. I just want to add just something to that, because I teach people how to listen, and I'm sure you would agree. If we all took the time to learn how to stop talking and listen, the world would be filled with so much more peace, wouldn't it?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Kathy, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No. It's the other question that I was going to ask is your dad. How did he handle all this? I mean, was he just trudging through daily and just, I mean, tell me how he reacted to all of this.
Sure. So my dad was a social worker. One of the family jokes was that my parents were uniquely qualified to deal with my brother and I. My brother had 5 diagnoses as well. And my dad was a social worker, mom the nurse, mom the teacher. So they both had a lot of background skills that equipped them to support us. And to be clear, nothing can prepare you for the challenges that learning disabilities, and not even just learning disabilities, but learning challenges, will drop that bar a little bit, can take. And as a parent, discovering and admitting that your child is struggling is a significant journey. It's an emotional roller coaster for sure. And you go through a lot of the same stages of as grief, right? Denial, anger, bartering, ultimately acceptance. And so my dad, he was a champ, and he went out there and he worked his full-time job as a social worker, and then he did painting on the side, which is what had put him through college. He did that to make the extra money for our curriculums and various therapies. And this was like the day of long distance phone bills. Our long distance phone bill was obscene because mom was calling all these people all the time. And he was there every step of the way. He had her back. He would take my brother Michael and I on all kinds of field trips to add that kind of dimension to our homeschooling. And he supported my mom every step of the way, as she eventually, as my brother and I started to have success, people started banging on the front door of our house saying, hey, can you help my kid learn to read? And so I got moved to the basement, and he renovated my room into an office for my mom, and people started coming to the house. And then I got too big for that. So, they saved and saved and saved to get an office outside the house, and people started coming there. And, he started doing things like taking over cooking a couple of nights a week because she'd have to work late, and taking over things that hadn't been part of his life pattern before, because that's what it took to support her in her dreams of helping other kids. And I'm immensely proud of my dad and the role that he played, both in my breakthrough and enabling my mom to start something that helped other people get their breakthrough.
That's awesome.
That is beautiful. You've built a legacy.
Yeah.
Well, in my life, I have had in 2 different chapters of my life, I have had very close relationships with people that were diagnosed with ADHD, and both of them have been controlled, if you will, through medication. Now, is that like a whole part of your program? Is that, and this is, just quite frankly, part of my ignorance, because I think
Sure.
that there's a lot of ways to deal with ADHD, clearly your pattern, but I mean, what are your thoughts about the medication and how does it implement?
I like to joke that I'm medication agnostic. For the right person, it can be a tremendous benefit. And when it's not a good fit, it's not a tremendous benefit. And so I'm not going to make up some stat, but certainly some of our clients are on medication, and lots of them aren't. It can go either way. My brother was on medication for his ADHD. I wasn't on medication for my ADHD, but my brother was diagnosed with about a 3-second attention span. So, what can you accomplish in 3 seconds of cognitive therapy with nothing, right? Like you couldn't even get traction to start, whereas my attention span was just a little bit better, so we could kind of get started. And he later went off the meds. But I think there's a lot of confusion and misunderstanding around medication, and I don't claim to know all that there is about medication. I'm not a psychiatrist, but one of the things I really liked was when my mom was having seizures, we went to the neurologist, and the neurologist said, on average, we're going to try at least 3 different medications before we find the one that helps with your medication. And I don't know why, but it doesn't seem like we're having that same kind of conversation around medication for things like ADHD. And I talked to a lot of parents who are like, well, I tried this medication and the side effects were crazy, and so we're never trying medication again, as opposed to saying, oh, well, we tried medication, the first one didn't work, and so now we're going back to the doctor to have a conversation about a different dosage or a different option for medication. So I prefer to help people make an informed decision. I don't care if you choose medication or not medication. I want you to choose whatever's best for you, but I prefer you to be making that decision off of not something from a blog, and just real accurate information, and knowing going in that just because you have one negative side effect doesn't mean you just throw the baby out with the bathwater. Maybe it's a dosage issue, maybe it's a different medication, and maybe medication is just not an option for you, and that's okay too. But don't just kind of have that instant knee-jerk reaction because something didn't go as planned.
Right.
Thank you, Matthew.
Go ahead.
I have a question for you that I'd love to have us come back on after the break. So if people out there, they're thinking, you know what, I need to contact Matthew. What is that process like to work with you and your team? What's involved with it? How long is the time? What should people expect? So if we can really dive into your business model, I think that would really help people so that they can start contacting you. How does that sound?
Sounds great.
All right, fantastic. We are going to take a break right now, and I'm playing this particular clip because I just feel like it's thought-provoking in many ways. It's a movie trailer, and it started out in the United Kingdom, and it's actually here in the US, and I'm going to see it this weekend. So let's take a look. It's Downton Abbey: A New Era, the official trailer.
you have a problem. That's not hard. You can do a Facebook quiz and it'll tell you have a problem. So our focus is the then what. A lot of people will go and they'll get a psych ed report or some kind of educational assessment, and it'll point out the areas of weakness if they're a student, or cognitive challenges if they're an adult. But there's not really a then what. There might be some accommodations in the classroom or maybe some communication differences for the parents, but there isn't usually an option to say, okay, well, the short-term memory is low. Here's what we're going to do to exercise and develop the short-term memory. There might be things like, well, use a calendar, write things on Post-it notes, but that's a crutch. It's not going to be a long-term solution. So that's our focus, is the long-term solution to develop those skills and abilities. So we start with a functional cognitive assessment where we're looking at 27 different cognitive skills, celebrating the ones, just like the lady did with me so long ago, celebrating the ones that are strong and creating a program to exercise and target and develop the ones that are making life more difficult than it needs to be. And that's our focus. So we would go from there and create a program specifically for that individual. We work with people from 4 to 64 and people with multiple significant disabilities like a mild intellectual delay or a cognitive delay, all the way up to incredibly gifted CEOs who just want to push the limits of what's possible and be like a Marine, be all you can be, and expand their cognitive powers. So working with a wide range of individuals. So everybody's program is created specifically for them, and they would come on board and we would help them exercise and develop that. And that's kind of the 1-step, 2-step process. And then they'd work one-on-one with their therapist and develop those skills. And we try to, I joke with the kids, our goal is to make it as fun as possible. We've got lots of games, we've got lots of apps and activities that we use that can't all be fun, but we try to keep it as fun as possible.
Thank you so much for sharing that. A follow-up question I have. Yesterday, Kathy and I were on a show together, and we were just discussing the fact that as children, when someone says something to you, like someone said something to me about my weight and still haunts me to this day, if a parent, if a sibling, if someone in the family calls someone, you idiot, you're stupid, what's wrong with you, why can't you get it together, that can really have a major impact on someone's life. So I'd love to spotlight you again and just have you share with anybody out there who's in an environment where they're judging someone, they're labeling someone. Can you share with them?
Sure. I think it's really easy for us to externalize when it's about us. So if we're late for work, we say that, my daughter spilled her cereal this morning and I hit every red light and this guy in front of you was going slow. So we externalize our problems. But if someone else is late for work, they don't care, they're sloppy, they're lazy, and whatever. We internalize their problem. We say it's their character that is the problem. And we tend to do the same thing for learning challenges. So it was really easy for people to look at me as someone in grade 10 who couldn't write and say that I was lazy or rebellious or a bad student or whatever. Or dumb, stupid, whatever you want to say. But actually, I had a well above average IQ, and I was struggling as hard as I could to be successful, and I still wasn't successful. So anytime you look at someone and they're not being successful and you assign any kind of label to that, generally speaking, that's not very helpful. There's an incredible book called The Myth of Laziness, and it talks about laziness as being a symptom of something not working well for that person, as opposed to a character flaw or a character trait of that person. And so I go around, I speak at parent and teacher conventions, and one of my favorite ones is on laziness and how it's a 4-letter word. And we don't use it because when we see laziness, I encourage them to be a detective and look underneath and say, okay, if they're not trying as hard as I think they should, what skills do they not have in place to be successful? Because you better believe in grade 10, if you ask me to write a 5-page essay, I can do the math. 3 sentences an hour, 5 pages, carry the ones. No, screw you. I'm not doing that because it's going to take me 3 weeks to write that essay, and it's going to take Jimmy 1 night to write that essay, and he's still going to get a better mark than me. And that's not okay. So labels are not helpful when they're that kind of label. And I highly encourage you. We all do it. We all judge others. So don't, beat yourself up for it. It's okay to notice, and then just be careful what kind of judgments you're making around that person and their effort or their intelligence or their abilities, because chances are they're trying the best they can.
I love that. Thank you so much for sharing that.
Okay. So you've touched on in a previous question some of the other types of learning disabilities that there are. And I was just wondering if you would maybe go over that again, because I think probably the most widely, I don't know if it's even really recognized, but the one that's most readily used or labeled is ADHD. Would you agree?
Mhm.
So then what else is out there? I mean, is that even the
A
right kind
long
of
list.
question? Yeah, no, I mean, I know, I figured, but so just for information purposes, for so that people will be aware, and maybe it will make someone,
Sure.
maybe it will
Well,
trigger something in parents.
ADHD is certainly come into vogue. It's got its moment in the sunlight. It's become part of pop culture. Now we're all very aware that ADHD is a thing. When I was a kid, it was just kind of this thing people were slightly starting to become aware of. Dyslexia, of course, has also started to be well known. Same for autism. Those three are kind of very well known. There's also dyscalculia. There's dysgraphia. I had that, which is difficulty with basically taking what's inside my head and getting it out the end of my pencil. There's auditory processing issues, visual processing issues. There's disorders relating to short-term and long-term memory. We frequently see individuals that struggle with either short-term or long-term memory. That's one of my favorite things to help people with, because if you can't remember something, it impacts your self-esteem so much, and then everything else that comes after that. And it doesn't really matter how hard you study for a test. If you can't remember it, it's pretty irrelevant. There's also executive functioning issues, which have to do with the ability to manage time, organizational skill issues. Those are kind of pretty self-evident, but often we'll look at someone whose life is disorganized and we'll think, well, they just don't care, or they're not trying hard enough. And no, maybe they just have an inability to organize things, and then that's cascading through the rest of their life. There's judgment skill issues, processing speed. So the ability to quickly and easily process information inside your head. So generally speaking, if you're talking to someone and it's taking them a couple extra steamboats to process the information that you're saying, that potentially could be part of the problem. It's not that they're less intelligent. It just takes their brain just that one extra second to process the information. There's so many different challenges out there. And I've been doing this for 21 years and I've never seen two the same. And that, for me, my inner geek gets really excited about that, because every single person that I work with is an entirely new scenario, and it's wildly unpredictable. And I love that. In my head, I'm trying to, anticipate what the results of their assessment might show. And I'm constantly surprised, because the human brain is a truly amazing thing.
Wow. I didn't realize that there were that many. And
that's just scratching the surface.
Yeah. And I just wonder how many parents are out there that have been yelling at their Johnny for, clean up your room. You get it together, and saying all these really painful, hurtful things. And if they just knew about the information that you just shared, maybe things would be different in both of their lives.
Yeah, I have a box of Kleenexes on my desk for those realizations. When they kick in, it's a pretty powerful moment.
Matthew, a question I have for you is, we talked about people who are, they go through this process and they have ADHD or one of these other things. What about if they are a senior citizen and their memory is starting to go as a result of age or something else? Your process can help them as well, correct?
Yeah, we have our most recent client is in Massachusetts, and I didn't ask age because she's older than me, and obviously, and I didn't need to know. And memory is something we can help out with and fight back the tide of time and age too. Assuming it's not due to something clinical like dementia, and then it's just normal. Our cognitive skills start to decline with time. That's just normal. And for those that want to fight that cognitive decline, we can help them to keep their cognitive skills sharp. We're certainly working longer and longer into adulthood than we used to. and people want to retain the use of their cognitive skills for as long as possible, and we can help them do that.
Thank you very much.
That's amazing. Do you think that perhaps you're onto something in terms of, okay, so say for example, someone's diagnosed with Alzheimer's. Do you think that perhaps if they had started earlier with someone such as yourself or even you, that this would perhaps retard the progression? Or is that hard to say?
It is hard to say. That's
Deeper
getting into some dicey water, but I think so. My mom had some pretty significant ongoing brain damage from a brain tumor that was causing seizures, and she would have short-term and long-term memory loss after every seizure. And what she would do is she would work hard to redevelop that memory, and then unfortunately she would have another seizure at some point. But I don't think she would have been nearly as cognitively functional as she was if she wasn't doing the therapy between seizures. I think she would have had significant cognitive decline. So she couldn't undo the damage of the seizures entirely, but she was able to kind of achieve her best possible function through that. And when it's due to a specific medical issue, that is kind of a bit of a wild card. But we even work with post-concussion victims to help them redevelop their cognitive skills. I had a pretty significant concussion, and it really helped me to develop my short-term memory back. And so I think for me, I always look at it as there's no downside. No one's ever going to complain, oh, my short-term memory is too good, or oh, my listening comprehension is too good. So I think if you can, do it. There's no downside to having developed your cognitive skills.
Now, have you ever worked? Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Are you able to work with people virtually?
Yes, we have clients as far away as Finland, and assuming that they are of average, minimally cognitive, moderately to high functioning, then that's totally available. For some of our more individuals on the low functioning range, like a mild intellectual delay or something like that, or cognitive delay, then we kind of have to take that on a case-by-case basis. But for our typical client, yeah, it's not a problem to work virtually.
Fantastic.
Now, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to speak over you. On kind of in the same vein, in terms of, have you ever worked with anyone that's had a stroke? So you mentioned like concussion. So like, for example, my mom, who's 91, she had 2 strokes back to back, and then she was ultimately diagnosed with vascular dementia. And so I wonder if back then, if I had known you, if this was something that we could have tried.
Yeah, we have a couple of stroke victims that we've worked with, as well as one individual, very unique case, missing, born without a specific piece of their brain, another individual with a hole in their spinal cord, another individual with Parkinson's. So there's some pretty unique cases that we've worked with, and those are all exciting for me too, because that's an exploration. Most of the time I can predict with a reasonable degree of accuracy, what we can expect to see as we move forward with someone. But in those kind of unique medical cases, we're kind of co-creating and building the process together. And so for me, that's exciting. And for them, it's exciting because often they're kind of written off, right? There's not a lot of hope there.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. So that's great that you will try to chart new territory. I think that's amazing, really amazing.
And do you offer packages, or is everything that you do a custom based on the person's issues?
Yes, we have a couple of different options, but it basically comes down to the specific needs of the individuals. Because we work with such an incredible range, it's coming down. We offer free consultations, so anybody can go on our website, breakthroughsinlearning.com, and request a free consultation, and they can have a conversation with us around specifically what are their concerns and what are their needs, and we can answer any questions about our assessment and therapy process and how we help them. And if they're looking for help for a child, help them to have a conversation with their child, because there's a lot of misconceptions about who we are and what we do. The word therapy can be kind of freaky, right? It's not a Freudian lay on a couch and tell me all your problems. I refer to it more as kind of like physio. So I broke my ankle playing soccer. And I went for physiotherapy, and they helped to do exercise and target and develop so my ankle could do the things I wanted my ankle to be able to do. And similarly, we help exercise and target and develop your brain so your brain can do the things you want your brain to be able to do. So it's not some big, scary kind of therapy thing. It's just, hey, let's do this exercise that'll help your brain use its memory better.
I love that. So not only do you help the actual person who's going through this experience, but you give coaching for a family member or someone who has to actually relay that this is an opportunity for you to get involved and how it's going to work.
Yeah, and we help the parent learn to relate to their kid on the level where their kid's actually at, right? So parents have expectations, whether they be reasonable or not, on their child. They have ways of interacting with the child. Me too. And discovering, oh, my child's listening comprehension is in the 5th percentile. Maybe I need to dial back my frustration when they don't do what I asked them the first time, right?
Mm-hmm.
Having that kind of conversation can really remove a lot of the frustration and angst out of the parent-child relationship.
Oh, for sure. I'm sure during COVID, were you just inundated with people needing help? Probably maxed out.
We are very close to maxed out, and we've hired 2 additional staff. It's been incredible. There tends to be a perception that often the teacher is the problem, right? You know, the teacher is exaggerating. The teacher doesn't really know what they're talking about, especially in kind of the borderline cases where the parent's not necessarily 100% aware of the struggle that the child is facing. And so when kids were at home and the parents were the teachers, I use purposely air quotes there, but they were like, oh, this isn't the teacher. This is a problem. And I can't get my child to be successful alone here. And so I got a lot of phone calls of people who were really looking for help as fast as possible. And we were blessed to be in a position we could help them.
I'm sure.
I am so glad that you're here today giving all this information. I know I'm thinking of contacting you myself. So I know for me, my memory is everything to do this work. And I think to myself, why am I frozen in front of this thing? I need to do something, right? So I think it's good to start working on your short-term memory. I think it's a great idea for everyone.
Yeah, like I said, no one's going to complain that their short-term memory is too good. Even if it's, let's say, high average. Okay, why don't you bump it to the superior or the gifted range? I did that with my long-term visual memory before I went back to university as an adult, and it made studying for exams so much easier and enabled me to live a life on top of university. It was great.
I wish I would have known you when I was in school, because taking tests were, I don't even have the words for it.
Awful.
Yeah. Painful, just a painful experience. So I'm just so thrilled that I've met you or that I was introduced to you through that course. And now you're on the show, because I mean, this will help so many people. I mean, you're doing such good in the world.
Thank you.
And good for you for taking a break and getting some family time and some self-care, because that's important too, because I'm sure that the phone's going to continue ringing off the hook because people need help. And I'm so grateful that you and your family have dedicated yourselves to doing this.
It's incredible, and the team here that supports me is amazing, all 12 of them. And like you said, self-care is incredibly important. Certainly for parents of kids with learning disability, it's also important. And so for me to be able to go away and have the team continue to run and support all of our clients and bring in support new families, it's a wonderful opportunity to go explore Eastern Canada.
Yes, for sure. To have that trust and know that your team has your back and everything's going to be running smoothly. That's fantastic. Matthew, I'm going to spotlight you one more time. And if you can share with our audience, we have your banner, but for people on the radio or people who can't read the banner, what's the best way to get in touch with you, and who would you like to reach out to you?
Sure. Well, I would like to reach out to anyone who is themselves feeling like they're struggling to keep up with the world, or to keep up with their boss's expectations or their spouse's expectations, or has children who are struggling to be successful academically or socially, or just to live up to the expectations that you have, that they should be able to, air quotes, should be able to function kind of in the household. That's who we help. And the best next step for you would be to reach out to us. Matthew at breakthroughsinlearning.com is my email address. Please feel free to send me an email with your questions. We also offer a free consultation, and you can find that at breakthroughsinlearning.com. If you prefer the phone, it's 519-888-6697, and I look forward to supporting you.
Thank you so much, Matthew. It's been a pleasure having you here today. And as I mentioned, I'm going to be reaching out myself. So I encourage everyone else, let him go on vacation with his family. His team is there. They can take care of you too. So thank you again. I hope you'll come back and see us on this or any of our other shows.
Love to.
Thank you, Matthew.
Bye.
Have a great vacation.
Yes,
Thank
have a
you.
great time. Bye. Kathy Fulton, you are about to go live on the next show in less than 8 minutes. So please tell people, what is your topic today on Talking Heads?
Well, it is how to find the perfect watercolor for your pool. So many people don't realize that there is so much more to this than they could even possibly imagine. So that's what we're going to talk about.
Fantastic. And I took a look at some of these pools. They're unbelievable. Are you in for a spectacular show? So let's sign off so we can get over to the other studio. And we do have a comment from Irene, and she's in Uganda. So she's part of Teach for Uganda. She writes, I love interior designs, Kathy. Thanks so much, Irene, for watching over on LinkedIn.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
All right. Kathy and I are signing off for now. We'll be right back in literally less than 6 minutes. See you all soon. Thank you, Matthew. Bye.
Bye. Thank you.